I never expected silence to be so loud until the moment I saw her lying there, stretched beneath the afternoon sun like she owned the sky itself, which in a way she did, because everything around her. This private resort, the infinity pool, the horizon glittering like a promise, belonged to her name on paper. My CEO. The woman whose presence could shut down a boardroom with a single look, now wearing sunglasses and a calm smile, sunbathing as if the world never dared to challenge her. I should have turned around. I should have respected the invisible wall that separated interns and executives, ambition and temptation, survival and self-destruction. But fate doesn't knock politely, corners you. She sensed me before I spoke, tilting her head just enough to acknowledge my existence without looking at me. "Enjoying the view?" she asked casually, her voice smooth, controlled, dangerous in its calm. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the strange honesty that only appears when you think you're invisible. But I answered, "You." The word hung in the air, heavier than any contract I had ever signed. She removed her sunglasses slowly, eyes sharp, curious, not offended, interested. In that moment, something irreversible cracked open between us. I had come to the resort on company business, sent last minute because everyone else had families, plans, lives that didn't revolve around chasing approval. I was the reliable one, the invisible one, the one who stayed late and spoke only when asked. Seeing her like this felt like trespassing into a version of her no one else was allowed to see. She sat up, wrapping a towel around herself. Not out of shame, but authority. "You're honest," she said, studying me like a problem she hadn't solved yet. "That can be dangerous." I nodded, already regretting everything, yet unable to take it back. We spoke then, lightly at first, about work, about the weather, about how silence could sometimes be more productive than meetings. Every sentence carried an undercurrent, an unspoken awareness that something had shifted. She wasn't my CEO in that moment. She was a woman alone in the sun, and I was a man who had just crossed a line and survived. Over the next few days, coincidences began stacking up like dominoes. Morning coffee at the same hour, elevator rides that lasted just a second too long, meetings where her eyes lingered on me after everyone else looked away. She pushed me harder than before, questioned my ideas, challenged my assumptions, and then defended me fiercely when others doubted me. It was confusing, intoxicating, terrifying. Power imbalance is a quiet thing. It doesn't announce itself. It hums beneath the surface, reminding you of consequences even when everything feels right. One night, after a brutal presentation, she called me to her suite. Not alone, not recklessly, but with intention. The conversation stayed professional, yet personal, drifting into childhood stories, failures, regrets. She admitted something she never showed the board: loneliness. "Everyone wants something from me," she said. "You didn't." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. But maybe that was the problem. I hadn't wanted anything until now. As the week ended, so did the illusion that this could remain harmless. On the final evening, standing by the same pool where it began, she looked at me with the weight of a decision in her eyes. "What you said that day," she murmured. "It stayed with me." My heart pounded. This was the moment stories warn you about, the one where ambition battles desire. She stepped back instead of closer, choosing control over impulse. "This ends here," she said, firm but regretful. "Unless you're willing to walk away from the safety of silence." I didn't answer, not because I didn't know what I felt, but because I knew the cost. As she walked away, leaving the water perfectly still behind her, I realized some views change you forever. And if you're feeling this tension, this quiet storm building under the surface, don't forget to subscribe, because this story is just beginning, and what comes next will test everything they both believe about power, love, and courage. The office felt smaller after the resort, like the walls had moved closer, compressing every breath, every thought. She was back in her role. Sharp suits, precise language, zero room for misinterpretation. And yet, something invisible followed us, trailing behind every interaction like a shadow that refused to disappear. We didn't speak about what happened, but we communicated constantly. In pauses, in glances, in the careful way she avoided my name in meetings while finding every excuse to assign me responsibility. I tried to bury myself in work, convinced that professionalism could drown desire, but emotions don't obey office policies. The breaking point came during a company crisis, the kind that reveals who people truly are. A hostile takeover attempt, panic in the boardroom, and me standing in front of a screen, offering a strategy no one else saw. She listened, trusted, chose me. When it worked, when the company stabilized, she didn't congratulate me publicly. She waited. Her office door closed softly behind me that night. No witnesses, no dramatics, just honesty. I didn't stop thinking about you, she admitted. And I hate that I couldn't. There was no seduction, no impulsive move, only two adults confronting something real and complicated. We spoke about ethics, about consequences, about what would happen if the world found out. She offered me a way out, promotion, relocation, distance, safety. I surprised myself by refusing, not because I wanted her power, but because I wanted her respect. I don't want shortcuts, I said. I want choice. That was the moment her guard finally cracked. What followed wasn't a scandal. It wasn't reckless. It was slow, deliberate, built on boundaries and trust. She stepped back from direct authority over me. I earned my place painfully, honestly. The world didn't collapse. Instead, it shifted. Our connection deepened not in secrecy, but in patience. Shared late-night strategy calls, quiet laughter after exhausting days, the understanding that love doesn't always explode. Sometimes it grows like a steady flame. Months later, standing beside her at a company event. Not behind her, not beneath her. I realized the view I admired most wasn't how she looked in the sun, but how she stood when she chose vulnerability over control. People love dramatic endings, but real power lies in restraint, in choosing something meaningful even when temptation screams louder. And if this story made you feel something, curiosity, tension, hope, subscribe to the channel now, because more stories like this are coming, and the next one might just reflect a choice you haven't made yet. Success has a way of exposing fear. After the crisis passed and the company stabilized, the spotlight shifted, and suddenly my name wasn't whispered anymore. It was spoken aloud in meetings, written into reports, attached to decisions that carried weight. With visibility came pressure, and with pressure came distance. She created it carefully, intentionally. Our conversations became shorter, our meetings more formal, our shared looks replaced by respectful nods that fooled everyone but us. I told myself it was necessary, that this was the price of choosing integrity over impulse. Still, there were moments. Standing alone in the elevator after midnight, passing her office with the lights still on, when restraint felt heavier than any risk I'd avoided. One evening, she sent a single-line message, "Walk with me." No emojis, no context, just those words. We walked through the city streets like strangers who knew each other too well, the air thick with everything unsaid. She spoke about leadership, about how people admired strength but punished honesty, about how lonely the top really was. I listened, realizing that what bound us wasn't attraction anymore. It was recognition. We saw each other clearly, flaws and all. Then came the test neither of us expected. A rival executive, sharp-eyed and ambitious, began asking questions. Too many questions. About my rapid rise. About her sudden restructuring. Rumors didn't accuse. They suggested. That's how reputations are damaged, not with facts, but with implication. She called me into her office the next morning, not as a confidant, but as a leader. "If this becomes a choice," she said quietly, "I need to know what you'll do." It was the hardest question she had ever asked me, because the answer couldn't be emotional. I told her the truth, that I would protect the company first, even if it meant walking away. She nodded, eyes steady, but something inside her softened. Trust, real trust, isn't proven when things are easy. It's proven when walking away is an option, and you're still chosen. As I left her office, I understood something vital. Whatever happened next would define not just our relationship, but who we were becoming. And if you feel that weight, that moment before everything changes, Make sure you subscribe, because this story is building toward a turning point you won't want to miss. The board meeting was ruthless. Numbers, projections, strategy, everything stripped of emotion. She stood at the head of the table, calm, controlled, untouchable. I presented my report without once looking at her, knowing that even a glance could be misread. When the questions came, I answered them cleanly, confidently, leaving no room for doubt. By the end, the whispers stopped. The threat dissolved. We had survived, but survival isn't the same as resolution. That came later, in the quiet aftermath, when she asked me to stay behind. No doors locked, no drama, just two people facing the truth they'd been circling for months. "You proved something today," she said. "Not to them, to me." She offered me a future that wasn't hidden. A new role, clear boundaries, transparency. And with it, a choice that was finally free of imbalance. I accepted, not because it brought me closer to her, but because it brought me closer to myself. Months passed. Our connection evolved into something steady, earned, visible in the way we worked, the way we challenged each other, the way silence between us no longer felt dangerous. One evening, long after the office emptied, we stood by the window overlooking the city. She smiled. Not the CEO smile, not the guarded one, but the quiet, genuine smile she rarely showed. "Do you still enjoy the view?" she asked. I answered honestly again. More than ever. This time, there was no risk in the words, only choice. And as the city lights reflected back at us, I realized the most powerful stories aren't about temptation. They're about patience, growth, and becoming someone worthy of what you want. If this journey moved you, if you felt the tension, the restraint, the slow reward of doing things the right way, subscribe now. More stories like this are coming, and the next one might change the way you see power, love, and timing forever.